guys, how are you doing? So today we are going to talk about Lecrae. The other day he had a conversation that had Dan Cathy, what's the other guy's name? Louie Giglio from a mega church, and Dan Cathy is actually the CEO of Chick-fil-A. They all sat down for a conversation about racism and Christianity, racism in the church, and just seeing what they can do to improve the situation. I'm Dr.D-Nice, serving you pop culture seasoned with wellness and wisdom. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram. You absolutely must, because I post wellness information and I make it specifically for the protesters, the activists, the leaders that are out there on the streets fighting for equality for all of us. Follow me on Instagram. You can get all the wellness tips you need to support your body. Now on to this conversation that Lecrae, Dan, Cathy, Louie Giglio had. Now, it all seems like it would be perfect, such a beautiful thing coming together, and it sort of was, but some of the comments went a little sideways, and I'm going to tell you all about it. But before, do you all know who Lecrae is? Maybe you don't, but Lecrae is like a huge Christian hip-hop artist. I mean, he is beloved by all races in Christianity because he can spit those bars and he really gives a message of salvation and hope with his music, and he's just really beloved. He's a Grammy Award winning artist. He's a producer, he's an actor, he sings. I mean, like, this guy, he does it all. So it makes sense that he was invited to this conversation, and Louie Giglio he's a pastor of a huge mega church in Atlanta. So it makes sense that he was invited to this conversation as the black voice. And they actually, because Martin Luther King's daughter, Bernice, Dr. Bernice King, she was also invited too, but she had some back issues and she emailed them or told them the day before that she wasn't going to be able to make it. So here they are in this church. They're all 6 feet apart because this is still Rona season, and they're having this conversation with probably about the potential about 500,000 or maybe even more people tuning in and watching it. Conversation is going good. And Chick-fil-A guy, Don Cathy, is telling how he has, how his company has come alongside some of the employees, wanted to hear some of the stories that they have about experiencing racism even in his company. Louie Giglio is talking about some of the things that us Christians and especially white Christians can do. And Lecrae, he's telling about some specific incidents when he's actually experienced racism. Even while he was a huge artist on tour, he had experienced racism, being pulled over just by profiling. Everybody's talking about this. And then it happens. And honestly, I'm going to have to read it to you all. The Louie Giglio, he says, I'm going to read it, if you don't mind. I'm going to pick it up and read this. We miss the blessing of slavery, that it actually, and when he said we, he's meaning white people. We miss the blessing of slavery, that it actually built up the framework for the world that white people live in and lived in. A lot of people call this white privilege. Irk breaks on. I mean, it's listen, he is not altogether wrong. It's just the choosing of the words. He, instead of preferring to say white privilege, and he later on said that, it's a more uncomfortable word for white people to say. Instead of white privilege, why don't we say it as white blessing, how white people benefited from slavery. And that is altogether true. But those word choices are ridiculous. White blessing. There was not. And let me get off. I'm not getting off track. I'm getting off track. So 2 minutes he talked about this white blessing, and the whole time Lecrae, they didn't really pan to his face. We were just seeing the side of his profile the whole time and his body, and I I don't know, if I was seeing things, he looked like he was a little tense. I looked like he was just like, did that man just say what I think he said? How am I going to respond to this? And I don't know. That's what it looked like to me. But I can't tell. You weren't able to really see his face. Maybe we should get a body language expert in here to really decipher what he was feeling. When it came Lecrae's turn to respond to this ridiculous statement, this is what Lecrae said. And I'm going to read it again. Even the idea that you have the ability to dismiss this as a privilege, you have the ability to not think about it, but I can't change my skin tone. That is how Lecrae responded. This was about, 20 minutes into the conversation. There was a whole another 40 minutes or so in it. And it really, let's just be honest, it really was a conversation. But as you know, as you could imagine, with so many people watching, I'm sure it was a mixed audience because Lecrae is super popular and people are like, oh, Lecrae's talking, let me hear what he got to say. And, his white fans, young white fans, I'm sure everybody were tuning in and just braked on this specific issue. And unfortunately, when everybody stopped and braked and hovered over this specific slavery as a blessing statement, a lot of people were not happy with Lecrae's response. They weren't. They thought he could have been more forceful and more direct, shutting this Lou Giglio down in his own home. He needed to shut it down, come with a forceful statement and say, look, man, I don't know what you're talking about, this slavery as a privilege thing. That don't make no sense. Yada, 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 snapping fingers, coming at him. That is not what Lecrae did. He gave a more thoughtful, intelligent answer about the thing. And was a whole backlash to the point that he actually was on another popular radio show a few days later explaining his take on it. He interviewed with Erica Campbell on Get Up Mornings. She had Erica Campbell, one of the halves of Mary, another huge gospel group. He interviewed with her and was explaining that, the comment did take him by surprise, and he wasn't sure what to respond because there was all this background information. They invited him to speak, to be a guest of a panel. He was in this person's church. He knew this person beforehand, and just all of those things began to come through his head when he was thinking of a way to respond to it. So his response may not have been as powerful as the Black community and the people for Black lives, people for Black equality and justice. His response may not have been as powerful as they would have wanted to be. And he really explained what he was thinking at the time when it occurred. And he did give a more direct statement on Erica Campbell. And he even mentioned that he felt a little shameful about this whole situation. He felt shamed because people were shaming him for not responding in the most direct manner to Louie Giglio's just absurd, oh Lord, the slavery as a blessing. Just absurd statement. He did come back and give a more powerful statement about it. Well, you know what? Let's look at this for a second, because most of us will probably never ever be in a situation where close to 1 million, maybe, probably more people have watched it even now. So let's just say close to 1 million people are watching you live, have a recorded conversation on the spot, having to think of responses to things. Most of us will never really be in such a situation. But we have been in a situation where somebody says something crossways and, we just didn't know what to say. And I'm going to point out 3 things that we can really can really be helpful for you. One is just understand that all of us are not quick with our tongue like that. I mean, I myself have been in situations that you think of the most creative cut down, the creative comeback, not even cut down, but the most introspective response later on after you've left the person. Like, I mean, I'm trying to think of like, one time somebody had said to me something about, I remember in my voice class, I had a voice teacher, she said, you know what, I think the schools were better off when they weren't segregated. Now this is a white instructor teaching me voice lessons, and this is what she felt comfortable saying to me. And I don't even remember what my response was, but I know it wasn't, I don't know what you're saying, girl. I know it wasn't, I didn't get up in her face. I know I didn't even really say something profound to try to shift her thinking. I was so shocked that this was coming out of this woman's mouth. So understand that not all of us are blessed with the gift of a quick response like that. My sister is, one of my best friends is, Amanda Seals is, but not all of us are. And, you know, sometimes what you could do is you could plan ahead and say, you know what, if I'm ever in a situation like this, what I could say is, what you've said didn't really sit well with my spirit. I really don't have a good response, but we're going to have to talk privately later on about this to really give me time to think about what you've just said. So you could be honest about how this conversation, how this comment sat with you. And so one, not all of us are quick with our tongue. Secondly, the whole shame thing. You feel a little bit of guilt maybe and shame when you've had this opportunity to really stand up. I felt myself, you know, I had this opportunity to stand up for my race, to tell this woman what it is, and I didn't. I just kind of cowered back inside myself for whatever reason. And there's a little bit of shame that you sit with. And honestly, the truth is, you need to take some time to process that. What about it felt shameful? Give yourself a few days to just process it. That is exactly what Lecrae did. He gave himself a few days to process what happened, to process the embarrassment, to process maybe the weight of what he felt. You know, here he had this opportunity to really check this man and on his white privilege that he's now calling slavery blessing, whatever. He had this opportunity and he didn't do it as forcefully as he should have. And there's some shame. And he said he took a few days to just really process what he was feeling. And he knew that he had to move on. It's the same thing with you. If you've made a mistake, if you've not stepped up to the plate when you should have, if you've not said what you needed to say as precisely as you should have in an instant, fine, you can process that, but understand that you need to move on. You can't just stay there and say, you know what, I'm just not going to say nothing no more. I'm just not going to say nothing no more because obviously I can't even say the right thing. No, use this out as an opportunity to learn and grow and learning how to find the right words. This is something that we can learn. That's one. That's two, really. And the third thing is the idea of, I don't know, I guess grace. Grace, that's the word I'm going to use. You know, God bless his soul, Louie Giglio. God bless his soul, Dan Cathy, because, look, if y'all watch the video, if I remember, I'm going to link it. You can even Google it, Lecrae conversation. You could Google it, but I'm going to try to link it. Dan Cathy, later on in there, he busted out a shoe brush and was shining Lecrae's shoe as a moment of humility. Oh, Lord Jesus. No, all right, I'm gonna go on. But grace. It is obvious to me that Dan Cathy and Louie Giglio were trying. They were trying for two powerful white men who are like the cream of the crop in this society right now, how our society is set up. White, older men, with money and power and influence, they're up there. And I actually saw them trying. Now, was some of their trying a little cringy? Yes, it was. Was some of their word choices ridiculous? Yes, they were. But even in that, we have to sometimes look past that and extend some grace. These are people that have been living in white privilege for a long time, and they may not even really understand the right words. They're still struggling with some of the advantages they have. They're still struggling with, oh, well, do I say something that could potentially offend some other people, the people that maybe are not quite for this whole equality thing? You know, these are some inner struggles that they're having, even though they may not say it out loud. But they were open and willing to come on this televised conversation or this streamed conversation to share their feelings openly. I mean, a lot of powerful white men have just written these fancy little smancy letters and pushed it out there, and that's all they did. So we have to extend some grace in that our white counterparts, they may not choose the right words, but really understand that they do want to come alongside and support. And we can't just cut down everybody just because they picked the wrong word. We can't cancel everybody just because they make the wrong action, but they thought they were being so super genuine. We can't. We need to really be able to sit with people and have those tough conversations, allow them to make some of the mistakes that they're going to make. And from there, we can help them say, you know, Mr. Giglio, to say slavery was a blessing, I understand what you're saying. Let's try to find a better way to frame that. And I understand that maybe white privilege is taken in a negative connotation with a lot of people, and it throws up people's defensive. Well, let's find another way to say it so that people can really understand what advantage they have been given. I don't know. We need to have grace with each other, guys. I appreciate the white people out there who are really supporting this movement, who are willing to and open to have those conversations. And you know what? Your close friends are not gonna really judge you from choosing the right words. So maybe the best thing would be is, instead of having these televised conversations, sit down quietly in your home with a close friend and have those conversations where you won't be judged by the world for your poor word choices. I don't know. What do y'all think? Guys, let me know. What do y'all think? Comment section below. It's there. It's there. And let's have a conversation about this issue. What do you think of Mr. Giglio's conversation? What do you think about the Dan Cathy shining Lecrae's shoe? I know I didn't talk tons about that, but he did. Watch the video. And what do you think about Lecrae's response? Do you think he was too soft with it? Do you think he should have been more forceful? Do you think he did the right thing by being more PC because of the situation he was in? Let me know. Or do you even think anything was wrong with how he answered? Let me know in the comment section below, okay? And remember, I got you. Peace and love. Don't forget love. And don't forget to go hang out in my Instagram and get some wellness tips. Get your mind right and your body tight. And we just might win this fight for equality, this fight for justice. See you next week.